Welcome to Marsha's Plate. This is an interview episode where we talk to friends, family, other community members, and anybody else we want to talk to. Hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey, how you been doing? Just checking in today on you.
Hey, what's up, y'all? This is Diamond, and this is Marsha's Play, and I am so excited to bring this Black woman powerhouse author to y'all and interview her for my platform. People out here just making their dreams come true is something that really, really inspires me, especially somebody doing things that I want to do. You know, I'm out here writing books and things, and I want to get it to, the level of being published. So, I got to bring a Black woman author on my platform so y'all can hear about her experience. Plus, she has a fire-ass new book that has something to do with us. So, yeah. So let's see how it's gonna go down. So I want to introduce to everybody Chloe Davis.
Diamond. Thank you for that. My cheeks hurt from smiling so hard. Thank you for having me on your show. Thank you for just representing the way you do. I am Chloe Davis, and what Diamond was talking about is that I'm a debut author, and my book, my love child, I call it, is called The Queen English, and it is the dictionary of LGBTQIA plus lingo and colloquial phrases. It celebrates over 800 terms used to describe our collective gay and trans and queer experiences. It is inclusive. It is diverse. Shows the beauty of intersectionality. It affirms, it empowers, and it brings visibility to all identities. And I'm so proud of it because I feel like with this dictionary, with this book, with this course, it has allowed me to stand firm in who I am and believe, being a proud Black bisexual woman, being proud of all of those layers, right? Because, being Black, sometimes in our community we experience, homophobia, biphobia, transphobia, right? And we're not really able to be empowered in our full selves. So I really, am proud of this dictionary because I want to make sure that I empower all of us, right? Empowering myself gives me an opportunity to help empower others. And so I'm proud of my baby.
This is beautiful. As you can see, I got all my little tags and my little notes. I done went through it to see, to really pull out some stuff that I found that was really great about the book. But before we get into the details of the book, I just want to talk about your journey as an author, like as a Black woman author. Because first of all, let's talk about some history. You are published by one of the branches of Random House. It's called Penguin Random House now, but because they merged in, I think, 2013. Mm-hmm. The history of Random House, one of a Black woman history, another popular Chloe was one of the first Black woman editors. We know her as the amazing Toni Morrison.
Yes.
Her birth name is Chloe
right.
Woolford.
Chloe.
And but we know her as the Nobel Prize winning great Black author Toni Morrison. How does it feel being on with that kind of history? Because we know some of the things that she was able to do while she was at Random House was, she was able to publish Black authors that would not have been published at that time. When we talk about Toni K. Bambara, Henry Dumas, even like Malcolm,
Angela Davis,
Muhammad Ali, Angela Davis, Huey P. Newton, to really paint a book picture of what was going on in the times. How do you feel as a Black woman continuing that legacy? How do you feel about that? Because
I'm in.
you're painting a
Right?
picture of the time. You are literally a part of the canon now with this amazing book of the canon of the picture of the time. So tell me, how does that make you feel? Look, I'm like,
Diamond, you're trying to have like therapy session here for me and got me all emotional. Thank you for reminding me that I thrive now because they dared then. Thank you for reminding me of like the shoulders that I'm standing on. You gonna give me emotional. So it's funny because during the writing, I'm gonna be transparent and honest about everything, but during the writing process, once I signed, with Penguin, with Clarkson Potter is the imprint, but it's a part of Penguin Random House. When I signed with them, I was excited, but I didn't realize the amount of work and magnitude and um, excellence and resilience and fortitude I had to have inside me to really have the book look the way it was, right? It is. So I remember, I New York, and I was actually performing, but I remember when the Morrison documentary came out, right? And she had that fierce read, you know what I mean? Like, white people and having, like, it's your problem, you know what I mean? And if you have to make me small, then that's your problem. And I remember how she also said when she like flicked off that white voice of having to like listen and morph and transform to their view, to their lens. And when she flicked it off and said, fuck it, let me do what I do, how liberated she was. And I too had that experience, right? So first, I will say I am beyond grateful for the opportunity of my literary agent, a white woman, right? But who I had been submitting, my work. I was actually let's talk about writing, right? So I was soliciting because, there are many publishers out there who take solicited inquiries. And so I had built up how to write an inquiry. And I was listening to the big dogs. I didn't care. You know what I mean? Duke, New York Press, let's go, right? And it was rejection. And happened to start really, really working on the look of this book, not just the language, but as you like the beauty of the book. It's colorful. There's these amazing illustrations, and the illustrations came because I started working with, I call him my creative brother. His name is Troy Lambert, Black gay man, New York City as well. He fed into me and he understood what I wanted to say. He understood how I wanted to teach and celebrate and educate. And he has these beautiful illustrations that the reader on, more about the word, more about the experience, more about the identity. And he came to me and he was like, Chloe, like, you got this. He was like, why don't you get a agent? And I said, well, duh. So a little bit of background about me is that I'm an artist. So I am an actor, a dancer, and I do musical theater, I do film, I do television. And I was like, duh, I have an agent for that. I should have an agent for, writing. So this is how I want to put this out here, because I also have been working on this dictionary for over a decade. For over a decade, I have been researching. Research includes talking to thousands of people, those I knew, those who I didn't, to talk about identity, to talk about words, to talk about, lifestyle and culture and intersectionality and trauma and pain and celebration. That was the research. And I felt like over that time, I realized that it was also my purpose, right? And so forth is like, okay, Chloe, it's time to, let's try to get an agent. I said, okay. So because I had been doing this, right? I've been sending inquiries and it'd be rejection. But this time, and that's why I said, we got to listen. We got to listen when I believe in God. So we have to listen to when, our energies, our angels, whoever we honor is telling us to go forward. Right. So I said, okay. Lo and behold, I was just doing some research, and it was this kind of like blog called My Manuscript Wish List, right? And this blog had the top, like, high tier literary agents in New York City. And basically what they do is they tell you exactly what they want. So I'm looking for YA. YA is young, young adults, reading, or I'm looking for nonfiction, or I'm looking for sci-fi. They tell you exactly what you want. I read someone looking for nonfiction, tapping into culture, tapping into a world that hasn't been tapped into before. I said, "Oh, I got it. That's the Queen's English."
Right.
Because there is no dictionary like this. There is no dictionary that articulates the inclusiveness that gay or queer looks like. And when I say inclusiveness, I'm talking about not from a homonormative. We talk about heteronormative all the time, but a homonormative view, right, of being white, right, white gay, white lesbian, right. And so a lot of times when we look at resources, it's from those views. It's not inclusive and showing the intersectionality of being Black and trans, or being AAPI and queer, or being Latinx and non-binary, or being myself, Black and bisexual. It doesn't articulate those lenses. So therefore, I was very adamant about having that. So I said, boom, I'm gonna send. Do you know, Diamond, when I sent that email, and I already had, like, I knew how to write an inquiry, right? Because I had been submitting already. So I knew how to formulate and kind of like an inquiry to a literary agent. And 3 days passed, and it was like, well, hello, Chloe. I have been, the moment you sent this to me, I have been looking through this, and it was just A through C, although the document was already done, but it was A through C. I made sure to make it, to show the nuance of everything. And she said, I've been looking through this literally for 3 days straight. I have not put it down. And she was like, I want to know who you are. I want to learn more about you. And she said, how far along is this? I said, this is finished. She said, it's finished. I said, yes. She said, do you mind sharing it with me? I said, absolutely. I shared it with her. 2 days later, she said, Chloe, I again have not put this down. She said, I just feel so inclined to, I want to represent you. That's what she said. And me, I'm new. I don't know anything. I'm green, right? So, I'm like, well, we got me, girl. Like, it's like, I need to feel you out. And I'm nervous, because also, and this, I'm not taking anything away from people who are self-published or anything like that. We all get to that pinnacle, that tier in our own ways, and every way is valid. But, I'm like, okay, this is a literary agent. Okay. So we met, I liked her. They're valid. And okay, well, let's get going. She said, so I met her, let's say in September. And then by October, she explained to me, she's like, I really like to shop, this manuscript, and I want to start in October. And I said, okay. So again, all of those rejections, that's fine from those other publishing companies. But again, I already knew how to do this inquiry, you know what I mean, for a publisher. I had all of the materials that are needed. So there is a way to submit your work, right? And there's a lot you have to talk about, like the market and what is it, and the value and the audience and all of these things. So I already had that together. So let's say met her in September. We have our, inquiry ready to shop to the publishers. Let's say October 1st. She sends it off. She sends me an email. She's like, sent it off. She sent it off to everyone, Simon and Schuster, of course, different imprints in Penguin Random House, different imprints in Hatchet, Houghton Mifflin, those. Remember Houghton Mifflin, y'all? So she sent it off, right? And she sends me an email that evening just saying, it's been sent off. Usually it takes about, 3 weeks to, a month for responses. Y'all, she sent me an email that next morning and said, I have an inquiry. I have a want interview. So by the time that week finished, I have set up 7 meetings.
Wow.
To with different publishers, and from those things that I talked about. And I'm giving you this beautiful experience because I have to remember the times that were great so also that lifts me up during the times that I was down. So I want to give the full story. So, I had these, different interviews, and I felt good. I felt really good about a lot of these imprints. I'm like, wow, But there was one, and who I went with. I mean, she was fighting hard, and Sarah Neville. Shout out to her. She's my editor of this book. She is with Clarkson Potter, Penguin Random House, and I think she was also. I think she was also new on the scene, but she was so passionate about it, and she's a lesbian, right? So she was like, she said, if I had this book when I was young, she said, I would have been a better person. I would have been more firm. That, you know what I mean? She's like, I want this book. I want this book to help people. Right. She fought for it. And I was like, and I remember my meeting, face-to-face meeting was in, Penguin Random House in New York City. And I remember walking in there and I just was like, Chloe, you are inside this building, and I say this too, because my mom is a writer, but she never made it to where I am, right? So for me to sit in this place, again, I'm standing on shoulders. So for me to sit in this place and look around and be like, look where I am. I remember trying to sneak and snap pictures because, ain't nobody Black up in there but the guard. So, I'm like snapping pictures and sending them, to my best friends and stuff. And I went upstairs in the conference room, and it was like 7 of them in there.
Stomach bubbling, nervous.
Right, I was, but but then I wasn't, Diamond, because when I went in there, and again, the only Black representation, but when I went in and then I knew what I created, and I knew the value of it, and so just being able to articulate and not feel small because I'm in this huge environment, but feel empowered because I created this and this is something we want. So I did end up going with them, and but there was a bidding war between them and another publishing company, and that was a great experience. And I decided to go with Penguin, but then that's where the work began, right? Because I think once I signed on the dotted line to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, it's like all the pressure came, like this was unheard of, but like literally, okay, so let's say, so there's over 800 terms now in this dictionary. So let's say when I signed with them, it was probably close to 500, right? So, but I was given like a list of, terms and edits of old terms. And they told me I had 2 weeks, 2 weeks to not only edit the ones I had, but also, and I'm going to talk about what is entailed in this dictionary, but also dive into over 200 more, right? In 2 weeks. Okay, so I wrote this in a decade. So you want me to do something in 2 weeks? And it's very, like, each term, it is a dictionary. So yes, there is, the term, there's the part of speech, there is the definition or definitions, plural, because I was very adamant about inclusivity and honoring different interpretations of, how a word or expression is used, right? That is only right. There is a usage example that shows the nuance, right, of how a word is used. There's the usage note, which is one of my favorite parts, which is really important. And that talks about the etymology of the word, right? Like, who created this word? Who coined this word? For instance, a lot of words, you want to...
Let me make this statement as you go on and explain this part of the book. I think another thing about Toni was a quote from Toni Morrison, and I'm paraphrasing. In an interview I watched of hers, she said that art is one of the first frontiers of social change, language and art. And that's why it was a part of her toolbox to make these social changes, because usually we see it in the art. When we see what people are thinking politically, when we think what people are thinking for the future culturally, we think about it in art and language. And so what you're doing by putting it in a dictionary, when we think of dictionary, like, a lot of times when we're having arguments, we be like, this is actually the definition of the word. This is, we will screenshot a Honey or Webster in a hot second. And so when I think of this and how it's all laid out, I think of this not only adds to the culture, but it kind of legitimizes it. It gives that aura of legitimizing the language. So you understand, particularly us as Black women, we know how important our language is, how important they try to shit on AAVE and Ebonics, blah, 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 blah. But that is actually our culture. You try to make it, when you're comparing it to the white man's English, it's like, oh, you're trying to make it subpar. But actually, it is our English. It is our language. It is what we have created, and it's important. And so what this does is also does the same thing with the LGBT, but like you said, it's inclusive. So it's not only just from the white gays. It's Black queer, ball scene language, every single thing that we use in our culture, in our community. This legitimizes it. So I think that's really, really important to point out. But go ahead.
Thank you, Diamond. No, you're right. And that's exactly right. And when I talk about the usage note, I want to say, when I started collecting terms, it was because, I had friends that were part of the ballroom scene. Right. And of course I'm using it. But when I just hear it over and over, and I would be like, what does this mean? And, a lot of times, like when people can call it slang, but this is legitimate language, right? But when you define something that's slang, you use slang. So then I would listen and I would give it this quote unquote academic definition. And it was fun. It was this game we would do, but that's how it started, how I decided. And then I was like, this is a fully developed language. It needs to be documented. And I had, a dear friend to say, well, when you write it, challenging me, when you write it, call it the Queen's English. So that's also how it got its name. But I want to say about usage notes in the dictionary, just that, right? When we talk about like slay, over, come through, push through, beat, fear, shade, all of these words, that comes from the ballroom scene, right? And it has been appropriated, right? So I say that this term originated in the ballroom scene and has been appropriated by the larger LGBTQI plus community and mainstream. Or to say that, this term is originated in the Black lesbian community, or the Black gay male community, or the Black trans community, you know what I mean? Or this word is commonly used, but to show that validation that you're talking about, Diamond, right? Because you're right. A lot of times our culture being Black, our things are passed down, right? It's verbally passed down. It's through tradition. It's through our food. It's through our music. It's through our language. But Black appropriation is so real, and it has been done over and over. And a lot of times we haven't had the tools to write it down, right? So that was my passion. It was not only to bring visibility to all identities and empower those, but it was also for me as a Black woman, as a Black person, as a Black love of my community, of all my community, it was about making sure that we had ours. We had ours, right? It's written down, it's published, it's valid, it's scholarly, it's ours. So don't argue no more. You know what I mean? Don't argue. So that's what I love about it.
So let's do one.
Okay.
So this one, I went all the way to you. And I always love this one because I'm not a part of this community. But when I hear this one, it warms me because it's really unique to this one. Okay. So this one is you, and it's called U-Haul.
Yes.
U-Haul is an idiom, a lesbian term referring to a woman's readiness to quickly commit and even move in with a new romantic interest. Example is, Dominique says, Leela has been seeing Hope for a week. I'll call a U-Haul in about 5 days. Iris says, no way. They'll be U-Hauling tomorrow. And then it says, you want more info about this word? Think, the ultimate lesbian stereotype. Usage note, this term originated in the lesbian community. That's one example. I love that example because that word always makes me feel good when somebody uses it.
Yes, thank you for reading that. Yeah, so I guess we all understand how the dictionary is laid out, and we see also the humor and play in it, but we also see, words are created because of an experience, because an experience needs to be articulated, and so that's why language is created. Language also shapes culture, right? So, that just also gives you a dive into, what can be stereotypically lesbian culture,
Mm.
but
Another
I just,
element of the book that I love is that there are sections of it that, which I think is instead of just being just like a regular dictionary, it dives into the history. So there's a
Mhm,
particular section that I love, that's about the Harlem Renaissance. When we
mhm,
talk about, it talks about lyric and literature, the Harlem Renaissance, and it goes through describing like different key figures and key moments in this era in time. We know how important when it comes to queer culture that the Harlem Renaissance had. Like these were the foundations of the ballroom scene where this language come from.
that's right.
So it's really important when we're giving context, when you're creating a dictionary and trying to teach people and try to engulf people in where this come from, it's important to give the cultural context and give the cultural history so that people can know, oh, so this didn't just start
No,
in the 90s when the ball girls was doing the tens. This started way back in the
way
Harlem
back.
Renaissance, 20s and the 30s and da 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 da. And some things go back even further than that. So I think this is one element about the book that I think is amazing because this is not the only one, but this is the one that I kind of wanted to show when you went into the Harlem Renaissance, and I thought was amazing. Why was that important to really give the cultural context?
That was really important, again, because it was about my blackness, right? My black history, and I wanted to know more about what was not being taught to me and told to me. So I love Zora Neale Hurston. She is my shero. She just like Toni Morrison, Zora Neale Hurston was my angel, right? That like, she said, speak now, right? If you have the power to speak, then you speak. I have power to speak, so I'm speaking, and I just appreciated knowing her story. I love Josephine Baker. That is also my shero, and no one, there she is. And, I feel like, again, we have to really have these conversations when it comes to homophobia and biphobia and transphobia, right? Because when we talk about black excellence, we talk about, James Baldwin and Langston Hughes, and that's black excellence, but nobody want to talk about that they was gay. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, stop it. Stop it. We can't do that because that is creating a false sense of history. And that is unfortunate because then that means people like me and other people don't get to idolize and see and say, oh, that person was like me and give me light to go. So it was really important, like, that I dive into history. And I'm thankful for people like, again, that I talk to, mentors that I've talked to that, sparked that interest because before there was ballroom, there was a Harlem Renaissance. There was the Savoy, there was the Hamilton Lounge, thousands of just like people get hype about wanting to go to a ball, thousands of people were going to Hamilton Lounge because they wanted to see the extravagance, they wanted to see the dance, they wanted to see the brilliance, they wanted to see the faggotry because yes, they were called faggot balls. You know what I mean? But why did there this separation, this need? Because of racism, right? White gays weren't allowing them, in their spot. So it's like we're gonna fucking create our own. You know what I mean? And that's why. That is why this brilliance, these creative minds came together and celebrated identity. So I love it because they say the Harlem Renaissance was as gay as it was black. And it's like I wanted to truly celebrate that. I want to celebrate black culture, all
And
of it.
the and the power of celebrating that is it doesn't alienate us from black excellence. A lot of
Mhm.
times we erase our queerness because not us, even
Yeah.
the cis heterosexual gays erases our queerness because we are seen as alien, and that makes the black in reference to white,
Mhm.
that puts a stain on the blackness. But by
Yeah.
celebrating us in all our forms, in all our glory, and all our beauty, it legitimizes us in the experience of black excellence in a way that says this is excellent too. This is not just because we are not straight, just because we are not cis, because we don't fit this respectability politic that you want us to fit. We are also just as valuable and just at the peak, if not more, because y'all still a lot of stuff for us not to be great,
Mhm.
if not more, we are at the peak of excellence. And I think that what this does is puts us at the center of culture, not only ours, but there's so many things that come from us. White people in their books tell us, we learned this in a book called, I learned this in a book called Deviant Wars and just some other things. That white men would literally, particularly poor white men, would go into these places, and rich ones go into these places and steal the culture and turn it into shows, and and you really capitalize us because this is where it was hidden at.
Right. As yeah, black cultural appropriation has been real. Again, it's through our music. I love Ma Rainey. Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. I hope we all saw that and definitely honored Chadwick Boseman. I actually was a dancer in that, so I'm really proud of that. But it's just that end scene, right? That end scene when you see that them Lily Whites playing that music and playing it with no soul, no beat, because that's the thing. They try to take it, but there's certain things you just can't take because it's not your blood memory, but for them to do that, and that has happened over and over, it's with our language, it's with our culture, it's with our music, it's with our style of dress, and there is a thin line between appropriation and appreciation, and what I even with this book, even with the dictionary, and talking about the language, it's not for you to use flippantly, you know what I'm saying? It's for you to understand the etymology of it, understand the power, the struggle, and the pain of it, because you just can't just take it. And that's what frustrates me a lot, is just people, they just take it, and it's I don't know, it makes me push for more power, for you not to take things from us anymore, Yeah.
Another element of book that I think is also powerful, along with the history and just documenting the language, there are a lot of, particularly as a trans person, there are a lot of things that sometimes, there are a lot of situations where I am seeing a tool that I think would be great for the bigger culture to learn some shit and not be ignorant. But I'm in a space where it's almost like I'm preaching to the choir. It's like, everybody in here is queer, so these are not the people who really need to know this. This tool needs to be bullhorned to the straight people, or put somewhere where they can, to the white people, or just so they can learn something. Mm-hmm. And so one of the tools that I see is this. This is a classic. If you want a trans 101 workshop, this right here is such a classic tool that we use when we're trying to teach people that I have that experience with. Mm-hmm. So this is the gingerbread person. And so this is a tool that we use in a lot of trans learning groups and workshops, where we're explaining the difference between gender expression, gender identity, sexual orientation, and different elements of that. And you actually have this tool in the book for somebody who, they want to learn. This is how you know the difference. And this is definitely 101 level. But some people, when they get this book, are going to be on the 101 level. Right. And so how important was it to have these different tools alongside that history to explain some of these terms?
Right. So I wanted to teach and educate, and maybe I got that from my mom and my dad. They're both educators. And I feel sometimes when we explain things, we think that people are on the same level as us. And I felt like for the productivity of this book and what I want to teach and what I learned along the way, I needed to break it down. And so, having people truly understand that one's sexual anatomy, one's sexual orientation, one's gender identity, and one's gender expression are two totally different things. They do not work simultaneously. They can grow and evolve and change, right? So it was really important that I broke that down, for those who don't understand. And when we think about that umbrella and those who don't understand, sometimes it's people within our community that don't understand, right? Because that's the thing. Again, when I talk about the diverse terms and experiences, because again, someone who is, Black and trans may not understand the experience of someone who is Asian and bisexual, right? So it's just we all are in a place where we are celebrating our identity, but we are also learning others' identity. And so that's why I break things down like that, is because not everyone is really gifted the tool of understanding. And so that's why when I do these history lessons and pronoun worksheets, right? And all genderbread person, it's about breaking down information for the vast majority to understand, and also acquainting ourselves, even if we do understand, but reacquainting ourselves with that understanding, right? Because identity is ever evolving. It's fluid. It's on a spectrum, and I just want that. I want to empower humanity, and I want to empower identity in its grandness.
So, what about the illustrations? Because as I go through it, I'm seeing some beautiful artwork. When we talk about this, I think this is gonna be Lena Waithe,
Yes, that's what
and I'm seeing representation of the hair. I'm seeing there is a one that includes disabilities, like
that's
with
what
gender neutral, and have images that
Mhm.
that represent that. How did you go about finding artists to contribute to the book,
Mhm.
and um, just how important that was to have those kind of pictures?
Yeah. So I have to, shout out Troy Lambert. He's my creative brother. And we worked on this dictionary for probably 6 months together, with just really cultivating, the illustrations we wanted to represent. Again, I was about inclusivity. You know what I mean? My goal was that anybody who picked up the book would find themselves in it. Anybody. Right. So it was important that I was able to show different lenses, right? To show the difference, to show like ableism, you know what I mean? That is a thing, you know what I mean? And so I can also empower those, who are disabled, to see themselves. Because again, there is the queer disabled community. It is a community. And so I wanted to represent that. Also, again, I wanted to shout out the people who are like, standing firm in who they are. And like Lena, I thought that was major, her going to the Met Gala, with that rainbow cape on. I just really, most importantly, I wanted people to see themselves. So I made sure to say, do I see this representation? Do I see this representation? And the other thing too that I want to really articulate is that this dictionary has gone through so many sensitivity reads, because it was important that I hear what people have to say. You know what I mean? Like, I have to hear, because I have to learn. And it is most important to me that everyone feels empowered. Want to feel empowered for what I did. So it's like, I just needed to dig in. I needed people to see beyond, again, this normality, because normal is not normal. Normal is majority, and that's unfair. I wanted to show what is really normal. Normal is inclusivity, and normal is diversity, and normal is intersectionality. You know what I mean? So that was, I like dived in so hard to show the representation through illustrations. And it wasn't just is my main illustrator, but shout out to, her name is Shanae Benjamin. Get on her. She is this Black lesbian illustrator. She's wonderful, based in New York. She's fabulous. A dear friend of mine, he's Canadian, Mark Yuri. Because he like stepped in. Yeah, I can help. And Cassandra Fontaine, she's based in Cali, and she's brilliant. Just brilliant. So again, representation. I wanted to bring in the minds and creativity of my community. And so that's why, I'm an artist. I wanted it to be fun. I wanted it to be interactive. So that's why it's colorful. That's why it has the illustrations. I'm a Capricorn, so that's why it's so damn detailed, but I just wanted to do the best work I can do. And I want to talk really quick. I want to talk about the process once I was with my publisher, because I want to say that it was hard, again, because I articulated before that I was the only body, right? Amongst this larger entity working for me, and there was some time many times that I had to have hard conversations, difficult conversations about I needed them to show up, and I needed them to support me, and I needed them to support my vision. So that was a learning experience to be able to like have that strength to stand up, and I exercised that and I learned from that, and they heard me, but there were many conversations on that this is how I want my book to be because it's my book. It was many conversations, and I'm learning too that that's not always the case, that there are many authors out there who they didn't win the fight, but it was important to me that whatever I created, I felt completely comfortable about it. I felt like it's my work, it's my voice, it's the experiences, I am, doing my due diligence to my community. And when I say my community, I'm talking about the entire QI plus community. I was very adamant about making sure I had those, they call them minority identities, but being aromantic or being bigender, or what I mean, being gender fluid, I wanted to make sure the poly community, I wanted to make sure that visibility was there. And I understand not everyone will share your same vision or go the depths that you go, but I just encourage those. I encourage you, Diamond, like when you feel the need to speak, you speak. You know what I mean? You keep diving at it. You listen to your your angels, you listen to that, energy, but you speak because that is your gift, that is your purpose. So there may be times where you feel like you don't have the power to, but if it's in you to speak, then it is you're supposed to speak. So I think that's my journey with being an author and being a Black woman, and not necessarily having the internal, when I say internal, I'm like through Penguin Random House, having that internal support of having someone who looks like me, who understands my journey, but I had to be like, look, I have been professional. So the 2-week deadline I talked about, I made that shit. You know what I mean? I made it because I had to have the conversation with my editor and my team to say, look, and this was also during, Black Lives Matter and everything. But I said, look, like I show up and I am professional and I have never missed a deadline. I am always on it because I cannot fail. Because if I do that, that means I am not going to allow my other brothers and sisters and family into this spot. If I fail, then you're not going to give the opportunity to the next person. So I can't fail. I have to be on it. I have to give 100%. I can't tell you I can't meet this deadline. I don't have the privilege to do that. But you have the privilege to tell me that you're going to try to push my book back. So yes, we can talk about that too. So my book was definitely pushed back. It was pushed back because I went through a sensitivity read, and let's say 4 people, and 1 out of 4 had something to say, and they were like, well, I don't know, and I was just like, what? But you know what that did? They were like, well, let's just dive back into it, and I said, okay. But what that did was give me such strength to say, what I say will go, and I will dig harder and I will go harder to make sure that this book is so elevated, it's so inclusive, it's so thorough that no one else can question. No one else can question. And that's what happened. So, that is the silver lining. So I say all that to say the journey was beautiful, but it was difficult and it was challenging. But to sit here with you, Diamond, and to have this conversation about the journey, to hopefully feed into you because you feed into me, for people to listen, it's worth it. It's worth it. It's worth the fight because, I get, inbox all the time when people just telling me like, I see me. Shish. You know what I'm saying? That's power. I'm like, I thank you. You see yourself. So that means I did my job. And it's worth it. So I say, sometimes your purpose and sometimes your journey isn't gonna be beautiful, and we know that, right? We know that because of our skin color. We know that because of our identity. It's not beautiful, but to know that there is purpose within you, and to know that if you have to speak, you speak. If you push, because it's bigger than you. Because when you do that, then that's elevating those around you to do the same thing.
And that leads me into my last question, because beautifully into my last question, because we are very familiar with our history and um, with this standard that we have to reach to when we talk about standing on the shoulders of people like Ida B. Wells. When we talk about, we already talked about Zora Neale Hurston. When we talk about Audre Lorde. When we talk about Octavia Butler. When we talk about these authors and the legacy and doors that they open for us, in journalists, in writing, in just in using the language to really push our culture forward, just really using that tool, because there's tons of other tools that we can use. We can use politics, we can use voting, we can do that, but actually really honing in on using the language and the written word to actually push culture forward. You are now putting yourself in this canon of work of Black women and Black leaders. So tell me, what is next for you? What is I don't want to, anything could be next, but like, is there something that you want to explore in your next project that we can, get a little tidbit of? What is next for you?
That's so good. Girl, you keep affirming me. It feels good. I appreciate that. I appreciate that love. And again, to be reminded, like, you're part of a legacy, you know. I'm excited to announce that the Queen's English will have a UK edition, a UK version. So it'll be in the UK in June. So that's really exciting. And to know that this dictionary is so needed that even in an international setting, it still thrives, right? So I think that's beautiful.
Shout out to Kachinga in the UK. She's a Black trans journalist. We gotta get y'all. We gotta connect y'all.
Square Peg, they're with Vintage UK, and that has been a beautiful experience to dive into UK, gay and queer history and culture and lifestyle, and to really see the similarities and the differences. There's a lot of similarities, definitely a lot of similarities, but to also see the differences. So I'm excited about that, and I think like this is so new to me, Diamond. Like, it's so new, and I'm really, really pushing so the world sees that this book is needed, So I think I'm just like headstrong diving into like, do you know about the book? Here it is. So I'm still gonna be there, but I'm still figuring out like my tools and my skills to say, okay, what else needs to be tapped into. So that's where I am, but I'm really pushing, now that the UK version is going to come out in June, just really pushing the book. And I feel like I'm really passionate about having these conversations with you know on a larger scale, right? Whether they be with corporations or organizations or I don't know, mediations, whatever. But I just feel like I want to keep opening up the conversation. And so, like you said, you're not preaching to the choir, you're preaching to those who need to listen. Because we are in a place, yes, there's so much going on, but I feel like we are in a place there are more ears that are open and ready and learn. So I just want, to continue to use the book and as a resource and tool to, push those conversations, but also to help young people, old people, whoever, really dive into their identity and feel affirmed by it. So when you're told so many times that maybe like with me, like I felt like my identity was muted. You know what I'm saying? Like, but to just know that, like, no, babe, like someone else is like you. You're valid. You're beautiful. I hear you. So that's that. And I think I just enjoy creativity. So my whole creative platform is, amplifying the voice of the Black narrative and also heightening the awareness of the LGBTQI plus community. So wherever path leads me, I'm like hands out, like take me. You know what I mean? So that's where I am right now.
So before we go, we wanted to make sure that we talked about one of the issues in the world that is close to your heart. What we do know statistically is that in the LGBT community, 40% of the youth, 40% of the homeless youth is LGBT.
Yep.
And so we know this is a huge problem because families are turning their back on their children. Um, they're not looking to support them. They are, if they don't put them out, they're making their living, they're making them living in the home of hell, so they have to run away on their own.
Mm-hmm.
And we see that when it comes to these trans um, bans and stuff that like happening in Arkansas, and there has been like 108 anti-LGBT bills because of this win, the anger that has been kind of thrusted on us when it comes to us kicking the orange Cheeto guy out. So they have brought up these 108 bills that are anti LGBT, and about 74, I think it's 75%, about, so like three-fourths of those bills are anti-trans specifically. So tell me why the issue of homelessness, in particular in our community, really important to you.
Right. So thank you for bringing that up. Yeah. So as far as the Queen's English and myself, I've been advocating for the support and care for our LGBTQ youth homelessness community. I feel like, we have to give our youth the opportunity and the care and the need. So I feel like, this is also a way that I am able to give back in whatever capacity I can. So I'm very adamant about out these shelters, these centers that support the needs of our young youth, and whatever services and financial contribution, whatever little coin I got, I want to be able to contribute to that, because I just think that it's important. I just want our youth to have more, to see more, to know more. And I just want them to know that they're loved. So whether if I, California in New York City, I remember years ago when I was writing, doing research, I remember I reached out and I was like, I want to work with them. I want them to I wanted them to do a sensitivity read of my dictionary, and I loved it. I want to hear their voices, and I love that we created together. And I love that they saw me and I saw them. And I hope when they look at that dictionary, be like, I said that. I want them to know. You know what I'm saying? So it's just important. It's important to me that our youth are given, an opportunity. So I'm about advocating for that.
So we will be putting not only my own organization's resources in the description box. We're going to put multiple organizations that are doing great work out here in regards to homeless youth, just in honor of the Queen's English. Make sure that y'all go get this ad. This, particularly if you have some youths in your in your home. Get this, because this is just something they're going to need to affirm them. This is something that they can see themselves in. This is quite important. Everybody needs to get this. I'm going to put some link to it in the bottom as well. I believe the children are free. We got we got so many. When we look at Zaya Wade, when we look at the YouTuber that just came out, I can't remember her name. I'm sorry, but she has a little bow. She's a white girl with a little bow in her hair, with a little ponytail on the side. Anyway, it's so many youth that are out here really pushing up against. They got their family support and they're pushing up against this system. So I think the kids are going to be all right. But we want to make sure we make their path as smooth as we possibly can. And this is one drop in the bucket to move towards making that path smooth. And I want to thank you so much and shout out to Queer Global for connecting me with you. And I want to thank you so much for creating this. And I want to thank you so much for even bringing it to my show and being a part of it. And just thank you, Chloe.
Aw, I love this. I love this. And again, I love what you're doing, your platform, your energy. Oh, so sis, whatever you need, however I could assist, I'm there. I'm there.
Tell the audience how they can find you.
Well, visit thequeensenglish.us.com, and also follow us on Instagram or Facebook at The Queen's English US. And also you can follow, I'm Nez, Nez_Davis. But yes, just, I just say continue to spread your copy, but get your copy and gift a copy. really important. Get a copy, gift a copy, have the conversations, open it up, do a kiki because it's funny too, y'all. Like, you know what I mean? It's serious, it's great, it's celebratory, but it's funny. So yeah, I just keep supporting, keep loving on each other, keep empowering each other, keep inspiring. I think we just need love, just more love, more love.
Thank y'all. That was it. That was perfect. Check it out. I will see y'all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling.